Hello, it is Carol, and I am out here driving. And so I just wanted to answer a few questions for you about karate and versus Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I will be driving, and I hope you don't mind if I'm kind of focused on the road a little bit. But I just left from class, and one of the things I was thinking about is, why do we wear that kind of weird uniform? Like, maybe to I guess Americans or people that live in the USA, we wear a traditional uniform, which means basically it's a kimono, and it has, for tungsodo, it has blue striping on the uniform, and you'll see in like taekwondo it has a different shape. They don't put different things on their uniform. But then also with uniforms, it has different patches on it to signify your school. And also in Jiu-Jitsu, you wear a kimono style type uniform. With karate, it has ties to keep it together. With Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there are no ties with it, because if you did Jiu-Jitsu, and especially in Jiu-Jitsu where you wear it's called a gi because it's Japanese based, is you would basically rip your kimono or gi apart. And in Jiu-Jitsu, the kimonos or uniform is reinforced. Like, the collar has very thick plastic sewn into the collar, because you use your collar to do many different techniques. And also, it's a very heavy uniform. So if you've ever tried Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you typically start with a very heavy weight. It feels like a burlap sack times 100. And I personally found it very difficult, especially after wearing a lightweight uniform with karate, how heavy and constricting to me the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu uniform is. So you may, even before you start class, and it seems to be like in Jiu-Jitsu, people just kind of show up with whatever gi they typically purchase online, and they can run like a good gi. You don't want to chintz out on your gi if you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because that's what you're doing all your techniques with. So don't buy like some $50 gi to practice, because you may rip it. It's not thick enough to prevent all the mat burn, and so you really need something thick to protect yourself from all the mat burn and, basically rubbing, this is kind of silly, but rubbing against people. So definitely don't chintz out on your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu uniform. Now in karate, you can kind of get away with a little more lightweight. I like a lighter weight uniform. There's lightweight, and then there's a heavyweight. And the heavyweight uniform people typically use to perform in or for tournaments, because they have a snap to the fabric. So typically when you do a traditional martial art, they will make you wear their uniform, and typically their uniform on the back, it will have their school logo on it. So you typically have to buy their uniform. It runs about, for us at my karate school, it runs about $20. And then if you're a black belt, red belt, or green belt, you're supposed to get the collar trimmed, and that can cost, like, I can I just go out and buy the fabric, and then I put like a lining in the fabric, and then I'll actually show you whenever we get to a stoplight what it looks like. But you have to trim the collar for my system if you are a green belt, a red belt, or a black belt. And then you trim the collar, and typically if you're black belt, around the bottom of the uniform. And you also, from traditional martial arts, they typically have patches that you wear. That I have an American flag on my right shoulder, and I have a Korean flag on my left shoulder, and then there's a special patch that signifies like your particular school or entity or like organization that your school belongs to. So you have to sew all that stuff on, and if you don't sew all those patches on, then it's considered, if you're testing, like an incomplete. So you are actually judged on your appearance and judged on your uniform as you test up the ranking system. For Jujitsu, you can basically wear whatever gi or uniform that you want to wear, but they do ask that you kind of put their patches on it. And I always feel like Jujitsu is a lot more relaxed than karate is. You'll see, if you try both, you'll see the difference. Like in Jujitsu, they're playing music. They don't mind if you are wearing, you do need to wear some type of uniform, but it's not as constrictive as, I've got to wear my instructor's uniform and their patches and pay for all that. They're a little more flexible with that, and I'm sure all schools are very different. But my gi that I bought for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that runs around $75 to like $100 some dollars. And then my karate uniform, which I get a lightweight because I like being able to move, that runs about $20 for the top and like $30. We wear black pants in our school, so I just buy like scrub pants online, believe it or not. So, but here's what I'm talking about with the uniform. Like, here's the collar. This is, I don't know, probably like 3 years old. Like, here's the collar, and it's, this is the trim and everything. So why do we wear such traditional gear? I mean, this is, 2019. Why am I wearing something that somebody wore, probably 100 years ago, 50 years ago? I really think it embodies the art part of the martial arts. And if you don't put that uniform on and kind of like embody, it may sound a little weird, but embody some type of like energy from the universe that all these karate practitioners and all the people that have done the art over all these years, basically from the times when the weapons were, what you were using in the yard, and, basically your hands, and if you were lucky, you had a sword or some, knives or some other type of weapons. Whenever I put that uniform on and then I bow into the dojang, which is the place where you practice, it's the studio, like that's a sacred place for me. Like that's a place for me to kind of de-stress and put all the mental energy into the practice that I am honing for, that has been done for hundreds of years. I mean, it's with traditional martial arts, there's more emphasis on kind of respect and saying yes sir and no sir. It's a more militaristic practice. Now in Jiu-Jitsu, you do bow when you go in, but and you do say that your instructor is sensei and that kind of thing. Out of respect to them, of course, but it's a little more relaxed. In traditional martial arts, it's yes sir, no sir. You address people by belt level and rank. It's a little more militaristic is the best word that I can give. And some people are into that. Some people are into, like, if you've been in the military, maybe you're a little more used to that. But when you first start out, it can take some getting used to of how to address people. You address them in a different language. You may need to learn Japanese or Korean or, other different languages, Brazilian or those kind of things. So I know how to do all my techniques in the Korean language. I know how to count. I know how to do commands. I know how to address people in Korean. So I'm sure it has like nothing to do with the actual Korean. The way I say it is probably completely, off base. But fortunately, our karate master is married to someone that is actually from Korea, so we kind of get, secondhand at least the commands. But there's, in traditional martial arts, you're yelling at each technique typically, and you are, yelling with each technique. It is kind of an interesting sort of class, and if you're not really used to that, like the movements are kind of weird, and we do like these crossing movements that's supposed to be like a block, and also like striking and blocking. Like if you've never done any of that kind of stuff, it can be really, I still find it at times like really strange. I'm like, why are we doing this? What am I supposed to be doing? So when you are teaching someone, and that's why it's really vital to get into a school that you have kind of all different levels, because especially master belt levels, I mean, trust me, we have been there and done that 1,000 times. So sorry, I'm in Pittsburgh and our roads here are completely terrible. So I'm just driving over some potholes. Plus it's dusk now, so it's getting a little bit later. So try to get to a school, and I think a really good thing is if you can go to schools and kind of observe, just don't go for like one time. You want to go multiple times, and I wouldn't base everything necessarily on internet reviews all the time. So you got to go to class multiple times. You got to see how people act with the lower belts. And, are there a lot of lower belts there? Are there a lot of master belts there? Are there people, do they seem to get along? Are they like kicking each other into the walls? I mean, I've been in those situations and, maybe I've basically been not assaulted. I'm not going to say that, but I've been kicked into the wall a couple times. I mean, but that was a little bit later on in my martial arts career. But if you want a more aggressive training experience, like by all means, like absolutely do that. If you just want to go and work out and learn some self-defense skills, like there's so many different martial arts and martial arts schools. Jujitsu is very kind of family based, like they embrace you and you are one of their own. Karate is a little more confrontational, or maybe that's just my psyche and my experience. So just go and check out a class, see what they're like. If you think one studio is not for you, then just move on. It's okay. Like, you got to find the place that is best for you. So that's just kind of about sort of the uniforms and traditional martial arts and the philosophy of martial arts. And traditional martial arts versus like a mixed martial art, I think they concentrate more on a well-rounded, well-rounded in a way. I mean, I have the philosophy that I don't want to do jack of all trades, master of none, and that's what I kind of see sometimes in mixed martial arts in the UFC. People have only been doing it for maybe 2 or 3 years, and honestly, I don't think you can get these kind of skills just in 2 or 3 years. I really think it can take like 10 years, and you know what? People don't always have 10 years to try to not get in there, martial arts career. I mean, sometimes you do have to train, but these are different skills. It's a physicality that once you start doing it, you'll kind of understand why it can take so long to do and learn, and your body to physically catch on. And I'm not saying that mixed martial artists that haven't, they're already in good physical shape. They're just kind of honing these different martial arts skills. But you'll see in Jujitsu, like I said, it's a little more relaxed. It's a family atmosphere. The movements can be very strange also if you've never done it before. And the kind of thing that I want to make you aware, like, you are on someone's body, your head is on their body, you're like basically all up in there. You're up in every part of people's bodies. And some people are like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do on the ground if I'm going to defend myself anyway, like I have to learn these skills. And some people are like, I'm just not so sure about that. So why not at least go and try to find out if you feel that's appropriate for you or not? You may love it. And some people get in there and, roll around with the guys and the ladies, and they're like, I was meant to do this. And some people are like, I don't know. So that's why you have to just try everything out. I'm sorry for the quality of this video, but I'm on my way home. It's dark, and it's getting dark. It's kind of grainy, but just some thoughts on traditional martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu kind of on my drive home here. And I wish you the best. If you have any comments, or if you want to know anything about martial arts, whether it's, I don't have a very wide expanse of Jiu-Jitsu. I do have a fairly wide knowledge of karate, especially Korean karate. And let me know what you want to hear about or what you want me to talk about. And I really enjoy it, and I hope you do too, but you don't really know unless you go to class. So have a good night, and I will see you on the mat and in the dojo. Bye.